What is magic money? Magic money is essentially your gateway into the world of trading bots, which allow you to grow your money on autopilot and secure a steady cash flow from it. So let's dive into the details of the business, right? So this is basically meant for people who have some excess cash flow or some excess capital to grow or experiment with. At the end of the day, what we are after is financial freedom, which is to be in a place where you have a surplus of money and you have a surplus of time, and your money is working for you on autopilot so that you can then use the time to enjoy your life. This is the end goal which all of us are after. And if you're an investor, if you're looking to invest into real estate or any other business, most probably this is the end goal that you're chasing. Because in capitalism, it's designed in such a way that people who are efficient with the allocation of capital are the ones who succeed in the given system. So if you have a lot of capital, then being efficient with it is what rewards you with more capital, which you can then use to enjoy the exploits of civilization, basically. Now, that's a brief introduction. So let's just dive into what the problem is. So now, if you're someone who has come across a lot of money through either a bonus at your work or an inheritance or a lottery win, a crypto pump, or it can be a host of other ways, then you're faced with an interesting problem, which is what should you do with this capital? How do you protect this capital against inflation? How do you secure this capital so that you can have access to it when you want? How do you put it to good use so that your money works for you while you're asleep and it grows properly and it basically produces enough cash flow for you to then live your life, right? To cover the basic necessities of your life, and in an ideal situation, to cover all your luxuries. So you have an unending stream of money coming in against your large capital, which you then use to enjoy life, enjoy your time, reinvest into business. But at the end of the day, have a sound peace of mind that you'll be taken care of no matter what happens in the future. So, how do you go about creating that safety, right? How do you go about using your capital to create a nest egg against which you can grow your capital on autopilot and also generate cash flow to support your existing lifestyle? For a lot of people, the answer is real estate. But if you look at real estate, it's not the ideal investment in terms of um, cash flow, in terms of return on investment. Usually, real estate gives you around, if you have rental and if you look into owning the property completely, the maximum you can get on a year is 10% returns against the capital of the property, which you invested into buying the property and so on. So you're looking at 10% returns in a year, and you're looking at capital gains at around 20% or so in like 5 years, 6 years. So for most people, the answer is real estate, but then the growth is not as good as, let's say, other options, right? So it's not as spectacular, because of which people then go looking for other options. And usually the answer is in the stock market or in the crypto market. So they end up buying stocks or cryptos, and then they find themselves in a very interesting position where when they have some capital gains, they are fearful of actually realizing those gains because they think that they might miss out on additional gains, right? And if they're in a loss, then they have another fear of realizing that loss. So if they get out of the market, then essentially they took the loss. So when should you sell? When should you take a loss? When should you buy? it becomes a problem. And so to solve this problem, people usually just set it and forget it. Maybe it's going to mature in like a year or 5 years or something. Or they go into a kind of tapestry of experts, right? And these experts start from the bank because the bank offers you different accounts where you can park your money, and they're apparently going to take your money and they're going to grow your money in the stock market or however they grow it, through their loans and lending system. And then they're going to provide you a return on that capital. So you can do it that way, or you can just skip the bank as a middleman and go to mutual funds. You can go to fixed deposit investors. You can go to a whole host of other Wall Street firms, and then you can give them your money, and then they would manage this money for you, and then they would promise you a return on your capital. But the problem with this system is that you are the one who takes up all the risk, because they might lose your capital. They might go bankrupt, as we saw with like FTX recently, that your funds are never safe unless it's, metaphorically speaking, under your bed, right? Your crypto is never safe unless it's like in your own wallet, in cold storage. Your money is also like never safe with the banks because they might be bankrupt. So you look into, accounts which are insured by the government to a certain degree. You then try to buy treasury bonds, which are more secure because banks can fail, investment firms can fail, but governments can't fail. So there's a constant cat and mouse chase, and as soon as you enter the realm of like boutique firms, you're setting yourself up to be slaughtered in a way because you take most of the risk with the capital, and you trust the fund managers to be experts who know things which you don't, and you bestow them with your capital because you think they're better than you. But in the long run, it has been shown repeatedly that very few firms outperform an index or the market as a whole. It's very hard to beat the market. And so the firms which do beat the market, they then close themselves off to normal everyday investors. And it's very hard to get a hold of them. But the ones which are still open to investors, or which partner up with banks to provide those uh, returns for you, they're the ones who hire quants, who hire like a lot of these algorithmic traders and so on to create these systems in the background to help them beat the market or manage their returns. So you then end up being in a position where you trust their judgment. So you give them your money and they manage it for you, they grow it for you. But in the process of doing so, they have a lot of hidden fees, right? So if they lose the money, the loss is yours. And if they make money, they get to keep a big chunk of it for themselves before they give it to you. And they might say that, okay, it's so that to cover the fees, so that if we lose somewhere, we make money here. They'll come up with a bunch of justifications, but the game is stacked against you in this way because when money is generated out of thin air, it goes into the hands of banks, which goes into the hands of Wall Street, and the finance system works behind the scenes with this kind of facade. And whatever returns you'd see in the market right now as a normal investor is a fraction. It's just the tip of the iceberg of the kind of returns which goes on behind the scenes in a lot of these firms and in a lot of these other unregulated markets such as cryptos. So how do you get a piece of that? Right? So this is the problem with the capital, is that if you trust it on your own judgment, you need to manage it actively. But if you trust it in other people's judgment, then there's always risk involved, and you might be missing out on a lot because you think they're better than you. So with this said, the solution which Magic Money provides you is firstly ownership of your own capital, and secondly taking the expert advice and applying it to your capital without the hassle of a bunch of legal paperwork without the hassle of going through a bunch of checks and balances, like not in the good way but in the bad way, so that you know in the kind of fine print of legal documents, you get locked into deals which are definitely not in your favor if you look at it over the long term. So with Magic Money, what we allow is that we allow investors who have an excess of capital to be able to firstly have access to their capital whenever they want to, right? Because we partner up with NinjaTrader, or we partner up with uh, other platforms like TradingView with 3 commas, which partner up with crypto exchanges. And in all cases, you have access to the funds at all times. And then secondly, we provide you with the systems, the trading bots, which plug into your account and then grow these amounts on autopilot using intelligence, which has been proven to beat the market, right? So essentially, what we're doing is allowing you the possibility of becoming your own trading firm so that you don't have to take your capital and go to the bank or go to boutique firms or search for like real estate, or just be stressed out about where to put it. Even if you put it in the stock market passively, be stressed out about when to take it out, when not to take it out, or if you're like doing it properly or not. All the systems which we provide have been proven to beat the market. And the way we look at it is that we are providing you with a next generation savings account, so that whenever you have a surplus of money, instead of putting it in the bank, instead of putting it in these firms, you can put it into our system and you have control over it at all aspects, right? So you can decide how much you put in, you can decide how much you take out, you can decide when you take it out. If you have normal um, fixed deposit accounts, or if you have normal shares, you still have um, the penalties for withdrawing money early. You have none of these things, which are when you're dealing with trading bots, which are trading in your own personal accounts. So we remove those friction and we give you power over your capital, and we give you systems which allow you to grow your capital on autopilot using methods which can beat the market. And so essentially, we are giving you systems which would be like a boutique firm working on your own account, but you just pay once and it generates money for you for the rest of your life, and it gives you the freedom which you deserve. So that's the solution. Now, you might say that, okay, this is nothing new, right? Like, why should you trust us compared to any other NinjaTrader vendor? Why should you trust us compared to the Wall Street firms, right? How do you know these bots are secure and will not blow your account? How do you know that you'll not end up in zero? So these are valid questions. And as an investor, you need to be discerning enough to understand that there are risks involved in whatever you do. So I'm not going to come here and say that I'm selling a system which is completely risk-free, or I'm selling a system which is going to give you spectacular returns. I'm not saying that. The systems which are up for sale are obviously not best systems which I have, because those are behind the scenes and those are exclusive. And so the systems which I'm selling are like basic systems which allow you to get market beating returns. That's it. If you bought the Nasdaq index and you just held it, then you'd get a certain percentage of return. But now, if you bought a bot and you plugged it in to whatever asset you were holding, whether it's like Bitcoin, whether it's like the S&P 500 index, and you get slightly more than what you would have if you were just passively holding it, then it makes it worth the price. right? It makes it worth the hassle to go up and set up the accounts and purchase these systems and plug it in and put your capital with them, right? So, firstly, we are not promising you spectacular results. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a system which allows you to be better off than passive investors. And so, if you're better off than passive investors, then essentially, by definition, you're getting some of the money which they are missing out on. So, with that said, what makes us unique in the marketplace is that we don't have a focus on trading bots per se, because at the end of the day, the market is efficient, right? All of us are dealing with the same information. If it's insider information, that's illegal. All of us are like dealing with similar pieces of software, similar programs. So in this scenario, it's less about like how much experience you have. I can go and say that, okay, I've been building trading bots for X number of years. I've made X amount of money. And so you can trust me for that reason. Or I can go and quote a team. I can go and quote backers. I can go and give you customer reviews. And I can do a whole host of things to convince you. But at the end of the day, what matters most is the results which you get. And what determines those results is the mindset and the approach which you have in these bots. So we don't focus a lot on trading bots per se, but we focus a lot on the mindset of trading being captured into bots. So, so the core philosophy behind Magic Money is that the markets are efficient. We all know that, right? But the thing about trading is that it's a zero-sum game. Every time you make money, someone else loses money. So what happens in trading is that people view the market as an ATM. People view the market as something where they can just go and withdraw as much money as they can if they're like amazing traders. But that's not true. The market is not an ATM. The market is actually a killing machine. It's not a money multiplication machine. It's a killing machine because 90% of traders lose money. And the 10% which do make money, they make all the money because they are taking money from everyone who lost it. So with that said, what allows people to take money from others is having an edge, right? Which is something which someone else lacks, which is something which your opponent lacks. And so with trading bots, you get superhuman abilities in the market, which is impossible for most retail traders or passive traders to achieve. You can make orders like in split seconds, right? You can compute a lot of information. You can be as disciplined as you can. You can observe the market 24/7. There's so many ways in which bots have an advantage over ordinary traders. And so being able to access it has always been something which was a bit underground and a bit limited because if you have access to these systems, then it's good to not share it because the more people have access to them, the less money you'll make. And so that's why our bots are very expensive, right? But apart from that, the core philosophy, and this is, you're 19 minutes into the video, so I guess you deserve to get an edge yourself, to get an understanding of um, how to make money in the markets. So, so the best analogy I know is to think of yourself as a lion stalking a herd of zebras or gazelles. So every time the herd moves, you're very astute about the weakest members in the herd. And as soon as you get an opening, right? So you try to chase the herd goes around the savannah and it goes around the watering hole and so on. And every time the herd, scatters, you see that there's some weak members who get identified. And so what the lion does is that it goes and attacks these weak members and then eventually finds a prey. And the market is no different. It's a killing machine. And every time there's a moment of euphoria, or every time there's a moment of extreme pessimism, it's like the herd scatters and the weak players get exposed. And if you can snipe in those moments, then you get a kill. And so the systems that we design are designed to take advantage of human vulnerability. And so it sounds dark and it sounds inhuman, but this is the nature of the market. And if you understand it, you definitely would not touch it unless you have an edge, unless you have a system which is designed to not just protect you, but which is designed to be aggressive and and can give you that edge over other players. So that's just part of the mindset and the thought process which goes into mastering the markets, which goes into viewing the markets in a very different light. And if you can see the market in a unique way, then you can capture it in a unique way. And that uniqueness is then what allows you to beat 90% of traders and therefore make all the money. So at the end of the day, I'm not trying to convince you to trust us, because trust comes when two people believe the same things. When you believe what I believe, when you see the world the way I see it, you will trust me without me having to say a single word. But the question is, do you see the world in the same way as us? Right? And so that brings us to the unique part of this project. So the strategies which you'll see on the website are a tip of the iceberg. These strategies are simple and straightforward strategies which give you a slight edge over people who are buying and holding. So every time you make money in the market, you need to be asking yourself this question, is that whose money are you taking? Like, who are you taking money from? If you're taking money from dumb retail investors, it's easier. You can have systems which are not that complex and you can get away with that. If you're taking money from a little bit sophisticated, passive traders who, let's say, have a life, who have a business, who have work, but do trading on the side, then sure, your systems have to be a bit more complex, right? But if you're taking money from, like, the big guys, big firms, then your systems need to be extremely complex, right? And this is where the high frequency world comes in. This is where quantum algorithms come in, and so the iceberg becomes more and more complex, but it expands in scope the deeper you get. So what this is, what Magic Money is your gateway into that world. And so every strategy you buy is not exactly something which you buy and put it and forget and makes you money. Sure, it does that. We deliver on our promises. But the most exciting part about buying a strategy from us is that you get access to an exclusive network of other people who can afford to buy strategies such as these, and therefore who have excess disposable capital to be able to explore it, to be able to explore risky ventures, to be able to have that mindset of going about and taking a risk and going about and striving for excellence, striving for financial freedom, striving for the lifestyle which comes from it. So with every strategy you buy, you get access to an exclusive network of other high net worth individuals who can afford to do the same. So Think about why people go to private universities, right? Exclusive universities. You pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars to go there. Why do you buy like super expensive cars, right? Why do you buy yachts? A lot of people do it because it's maybe their childhood dream, maybe they like the lifestyle, but in a lot of cases, people do it to meet other like-minded people who can afford the same things. So if you go to an exclusive private club, then essentially you just paid money to access other people who paid money, right? And the club just provides you with uh, the building, the ecosystem, a few perks here and there. If you buy a car, expensive sports car, it's the same thing, right? You can access the network, but you have a depreciating asset. You don't get much in return, you know, when it comes to like accessing these private networks, when it comes to the entry ticket for accessing these private networks. But the network with Magic Money is that you get something which is extremely valuable, which generates money as a token to access the network, right? So even if you have like no money, even if you cannot afford any of the strategies, you can build up the capital using an affiliate program, which is very handsome if you ask me. 20% of every sale, and the minimum, the cheapest bot which we have is like $3,000. So that is definitely something which you can use to build up the capital to then access these bots. Then when you buy these bots, you get access to the network. And within the network, you can get access to opportunities which will never be available on the surface internet. For example, you can get access to loans. Let's say you don't have that strong of a credit score. Well, someone might have a company which has a very strong credit score, right? And they might be part of this network and they might like you. And you would then be able to borrow like millions of dollars or you might be able to buy this person's company at a very cheap price and then use that to borrow millions of dollars, which you then plug into these pots and maximize your cash and cash ROI to be 10x, 20x of what you were currently receiving, right? Or you might have other interests, for example, like, you might want to buy Bugatti, right? But then all the Bugattis are sold out, right? But some person in this network might have bought an allocation, and so you can buy it off. So these are deals which are like never going to be available in the surface internet, right? And it's never going to be available unless you know the right people. And so in a way, this project is basically to connect ultra high net worth people with each other against the excuse of these trading bots. And so once you're in the network, once you have something which is making money, right? Once you build up to buying one of these, um, then you can go in to buy even more complex trading bots, right? Then you can go into having even more complex deals. Then you can go into structuring, um, certain financial entities in certain ways so that you secure the wealth for generations to come. So that is what is the most exciting part of Magic Money, if you ask me, right? It's not just the financial freedom that you get; it's the community which you get alongside it to actually enjoy this wealth, right? To be able to talk to other people who are experiencing similar issues or who are deriving their wealth from similar sources, and then work with each other. For example, like let's say if you need security, right? Let's say you went into a foreign country, you fall into some trouble, right? And there's someone from there who's very wealthy and very well connected as a consequence of these machines. You can connect with them and you can come out of that situation. So, so there's a whole host of things which follow it. And compared to most circles on the internet, compared to most private networks, I think you get a valid token of entry, which is trading bots. And so I can't think of anything better because in most of these networks, you just pay the money and they kind of provide you infrastructure and you have to do everything on your own. You need to figure it out. You need to network. You need to add value. You need to hustle. But here it's like all of you will have like trading bots. All of you will have more complex versions of these. And so, it becomes like a better token of entry for a more exclusive network and a more bulletproof network, if you ask me. Well, because this is a system which is very hard to take down if set up properly. People can attack your business, people can shut down your banks, people can attack so many other sources of your wealth, but it's very hard to attack algorithms which are set up properly on this proper structures because it's basically vapor, it's basically in the air. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope you get the most out of this business. I hope you have enough risk capital to be able to allocate to purchasing one of these bots, which is also purchasing the entry ticket into the network without it breaking your bank, right? So if you're going to use your life savings, don't use your life savings to buy one of our bots. Use the affiliate program, find people. There are 23 million millionaires in the world. Find some who will appreciate this and then, get into the community as a consequence of that, but don't risk your life savings. And again, if you have excess capital, I want this to be the best place for you to park it, right? And I already explained why. And if you have any other if you have any other questions, then feel free to use the chat box in the website, or just reach out to us. Just go to the contact form, support@magicmoney.com, .cash, and just send us an email, and we'll get back to you with any further questions or clarifications. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I wish you the best. Thank you. Take care.